afternoon. This is Michele Rosenthal, and welcome to Changing Direction, which is, as you know, if you've been here week after week with me for the past few years, or if you're just joining us, this show is all about what it means to be able to take yourself from where you are today to where you want to be tomorrow by creating change you choose. And if you're here right now, it's because you think, you hope, you believe, you're crossing your fingers that it is possible to overcome whatever's gone on in your past, whether that's big T trauma or little t trauma, and move yourself into more of a connection, reclaiming a sense of who you are in the present, and then moving into creating the future that you really want to live. So often things happen to us and we just accept them. And I don't know, if you're like me, I accepted things for a really long time. And especially because trauma in my past had taught me just learn to be reactive. Don't be proactive, because the only way you'll survive is if you can respond. And that's actually, I think, backwards. I think it's important to be able to react and respond, but it's equally, if not more important, to be proactive and create. So every week here, I am talking to survivors and professionals and all kinds of experts in terms of what it takes to move forward, to create the change you choose in your personal life, your professional life, relationships, your career. And one of the things that I really love about everybody that I've interviewed so far is they are so sure it is possible to change, and mostly that's because they've actually seen it. So this week is right on track and in line with all of that. I have for you this week a guest who is so incredibly inspirational. She has gone from a diagnosis of only 6 months to live and being paralyzed to being the most thriving, one of our leading health coaches, walking again, and really changing her whole life in terms of who she is and how she works, and her whole philosophy, I think, is so interesting. So that's coming up. I will introduce you to her in a moment. But before we get any further in, grab a pen, because I am going to give you the phone number so that if you have questions, if you feel like sharing your experience, or you want to ask me or my guest a question about how to change direction and how to apply it in your own life, the phone number is 347-324-5164. That's 347-324-5164. So I'm going to interview my guest, and then later in the show, last week I started something that I thought would be fun, and we got good feedback on it, so thank you to those of you who got in touch and letting me know, yeah, that was good. Always helps to have feedback so that we continue to know how to grow the show. So last week, I get so many questions through our social media. So, you know, if you're following us on Twitter at Change You Choose, or on Facebook, the Heal My PTSD fan page, or the Michele Rosenthal newly minted fan page. I just decided we needed one place where we could all come together. Our community had sort of gotten fragmented between trauma and PTSD, and so I decided let's all come together, because essentially we have so many of the same experiences and we meet really so much in the middle. So I get so many questions, and I thought I'm going to start answering some on air. So if you have questions, and maybe you don't want to call in, maybe you want to, you want to be anonymous, or you don't, actually you can call in and be anonymous, because you don't have to tell me your name when you call in. But if you don't feel like talking live and you just have a question, feel free to tweet your question to @ChangeYouChoose, or to post it on the Michele Rosenthal fan page. So that's coming up later in the show, along with your weekly Change You Choose quote. So without further ado, and as we get further into the show, one of the things that I think is so important to remember is how much you actually can control the world that you live in. So many of us feel like I don't feel as safe as I want to be, or I don't have as much control as I wanted to have. Well, you can change how that feels. And my guest today is going to be able to really, I think, she doesn't know this yet, but I think she'll be able to show you what it looks like to be able to reclaim control. My guest is Christie Aphrodite, one of our leading health coaches, and in 1996, she was paralyzed from the waist down and so sick doctors gave her 6 months to live. She healed herself with nutrition. Today, she walks. Amazing. What an amazing story. But that's not all. In 2006, 10 years later, she also crusaded to expose a sex trafficking ring in McGonigal Canyon. And even though she put herself at risk and even her daughters, because when they were kidnapped at gunpoint, she survived and triumphed over that whole situation and has moved into this place of working as a health coach to help other people learn to overcome, revitalize, and move forward. Christie Aphrodite, I want to welcome you to Changing Direction. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful, Michelle. Thanks so much for that lovely introduction, and I just feel so honored to be here with you. You're so spunky and cute and lovely, and woohoo! Happy Monday!
Happy Monday. You actually have a very long and accomplished bio, which was too long for the air, but it's on our website at changeyouchoose.com. If you want to know more about Christie, you can also visit her. She has a fantastic radio show. You can visit her at souljourneysradio.com and also mytrueessence.net. So, Christie, let's start with, that's such an amazing story that you have. Take me back to 1996 and tell me what it was like to receive that diagnosis. And really what I want to hear is your thought process to get out of that diagnosis. You're paralyzed. You're told you have 6 months to live. For me, in my journey, the diagnoses I got were possible liver cancer, celiac disease, advanced osteoporosis. It was like a raining parade of all these things that were wrong. And I know inside myself, I imploded. Each diagnosis, each new test just made me feel like, holy cow, I can't handle any more of this. But you did something very special. Tell me about it and how you did it.
Okay, well, first of all, it didn't happen overnight. And back then, it was just such a long process. I mean, in and out of hospitals ever since I could remember as a child. So when that came, it's just like, thank God, get me out of here. I was totally ready for it because, you know, despite some of the diagnoses, you know, cancer, diabetes insipidus, lupus, all of that, the rest of it was still a mystery. Like, they had the gall to tell me, well, you have 6 months to live, and, you know, went through all the testings, the MRIs, but they didn't really have a specific reason. So I think that because there wasn't a specific reason, my traumatized body and mind didn't really accept that piece of the poison. And don't get me wrong, I held on to all the rest of it and really thought that I was just here to live lifelong of disease. But yeah, so initially then it was just like, yay, okay, take me off this planet. I'm just so done with the drugs and the trauma and just not having any answers and not having any solutions. But really what happened that opened my eyes back then was running into my uncle, who I hadn't seen since I was a teenager, and he was in another state and impossible to get a hold of kind of thing. And he had written a bunch of books, and they were called, let me see, The Big Book of the Book of Life. And in there, he just, the most simple statement, what is the opposite of disease? Ease. And like this light bulb went on. So like a page later, he started talking about, you know, like aspirin or Tylenol or something. And he said, do you really think that little white pill is so smart that one day it knows, oh, it's going to fix your menstrual cramps. The next day it's your headache. The next day it's your knee ache. The next day it's your backache. And so that's where the light bulb went on. And, you know, like I didn't know the answers because I was a nutrition major in college. So I learned the food pyramid and all of those aspartame is good for you, and I was living off of a gallon of Crystal Light and my little can of peas, so I can be a perfect little stick figure and, model and do all those things that 6-foot blondes from California are kind of pushed to do. And so, yeah, it was definitely a process, but that got me thinking, and I just, I'm like, God, universe, whoever, creator, if there is such a thing, if you really are out there, please show me the way. And so people just started coming into my life that gave me hope rather than saying, oh, you poor thing, sorry you're suffering and so glad you have some good drugs to, ride it out with. I met people that told me I could walk. I met people that told me I could heal. And initially, I have to say, I didn't really believe it, but I had 2 children. I was a single mother, and all I knew was that I had to try. So I found good teachers, and that's kind of it in a nutshell.
You know what, Christie, that is so huge, because I think the power of who believes in us can be enormous in our healing process. And I know, from just my own experience and also from the people I've worked with. I mean, I literally worked with a guy who'd been working with a psychiatrist who had told him, you can't heal PTSD. It can't be done. So we'll just work to make sure you can cope with it. And then the enormous shock and surprise to that psychiatrist when I worked with the guy, and he's PTSD-free now. And what's the difference? Well, some of it's methodology, but a lot of it is belief. So talk to me when you realized that, you had these people who believed in you. And I think you're so right, because it takes a little bit of time for us to catch up. What helped you believe in yourself and what they were telling you?
Oh, wow. That's the toughest one, and still something that I'm still working on till today, Michele. I mean, I don't want to get on here and say, hi, I'm perfectly healed, and I'm so, I've got it all figured out. No way. I'm even this little cold I'm trying to get over, which I don't even like calling it a cold. It's just basically a reminder of what emotions I'm suppressing. This is just another distinct reminder that there is a long way to go as far as healing. However, looking back, it's like, wow, I really came a long way. So I guess to answer what helped me start to believe in me, honestly, in the beginning, when I was told, oh, well, just, tell yourself you can heal and thank God for healing your body already. In the beginning, it was a lie. I felt it was a lie when I was trying to change my thoughts, saying, oh, I can heal, visualizing myself walking again and taking care of my children. I would visualize I'd just wake up one day and I would be okay. And I knew consciously, I'm thinking, well, am I lying to myself, or is there some segment in me that believes it? But I knew, what was the alternative? Drugs, more surgeries, more wheelchairs, more, senior citizens picking me up off the ground, which really killed me, looking at my children while they're feeding me. So I just figured, well, let's just try it and see. So once I started seeing results, like even small ones, that gave me the confidence to really see, oh my gosh, there's something to this. And, Olivia was right and Sam was right. So it's definitely been a long process. So those little baby steps, when I started to make small changes, for example, when I quit drinking sodas, I quit having strokes. So it was like, wow, there's something tangible. Why didn't I know this sooner? Why didn't anyone tell me this long ago? So that kind of gave me the confidence to take my health into my hands. And, because the alternative was obviously not working. So.
Right. My guest today is health coach Christie Aphrodite. You can find out more about her at mytrueessence.net. So, Christie, I love what you said, because you just said a couple, when I you started that by saying what helped me to believe in myself was, well, first I lied to myself by trying to change my thoughts and visualize. And I think you're so right. We do, it's, I like to call it acting as if. Acting as if I believe in this. Because maybe I don't yet, but I'm going to pretend to see if I can, get something started. And a little bit, I think it's also being open to the idea, well, this is possible. And then you talked about considering the alternative, which I think is great, because sometimes we get so focused in the present moment and how crappy it is that we don't think, well, the future could be worse if I don't really get focused in the present. And then being aware of the results, how often we don't appreciate the little things that go right. And I guess that's sort of the idea of gratitude journals and gratitude practices, isn't it?
Definitely. And Michele, the alternative in my case, I mean, I was already at the point where I wanted to die. So when I was told I had 6 months to live, I really felt relieved because I was already in so much pain, not just physically, I mean, obviously emotionally, because I took all that on. I believed every single diagnosis everyone gave me. And, like a good little girl, I did what I was told. I took all the drugs. I did all the surgery. I did everything they told me to do, and I only got worse. So I really was in a place of hopelessness. I thought there was no hope for me. But then I have those beautiful little girls and look in their eyes, and it's like, wow, there has to be something. So I had to expand my mind and my heart to accept that there could be other possibilities out there. So, like my mentors and such, Olivia, they would share these amazing healing experiences with me that, you really don't hear in mainstream media. You don't, oh, this person cured themselves of whatever. We just don't hear those stories. So in my reality at the time, it would have been a miracle or almost impossible or, 7 billion to 1 type odds. And so as I surrounded myself with healthier minded, more positive people that were telling me, Christie, look, here's some success stories and you can do it too. And these are the way our bodies are designed. It opened up new realities, and I started experiencing results right away, so it just made it that much easier. And the first time I could walk, and I didn't just get up and start walking. It was definitely a process, falling over and walking sideways like a crab, and, definitely a struggle, but I'm like, wow, there's hope. So I really could grasp onto those dreams, those visualizations that I had made. And it's like, wow, maybe I'm not lying to myself. Thank you so much. And, you mentioned gratitude. I started to really be mindful about being grateful for everything that I had, including my experience, being ill physically and mentally, because, like I said, looking back, it's like, wow, that is kind of cool. I never thought I was, that remarkable of a person.
Christie, talk to me more about that, because I think it's really hard to come through something and then learn to appreciate it afterward. I know in my own, on my own path, it really took me a long time to sort of look back and say, holy cow, look what you did, girl, and be proud of myself and appreciative of that heroic part of me that sort of came up and said, all right, we're going to survive this and we're going to overcome it. So how did you facilitate that process of getting to a place where you can really appreciate maybe your own self in the journey, or even the gifts that came out of the journey?
Again, a long process. The hardest part, I think, for me was forgiveness, because I was holding on to resentments and essentially just wrong perceptions about myself and life in general. So I was always blaming everything and everyone outside myself. So I held on to those resentments. Oh, it's your fault. You did this to me, or, this doctor did that, or this, this person abused me this way, and I'm going to hold on to it forever. But as I started to learn about the body and how it works and how emotions correlate with disease and different, body parts and such, I started to see that these illnesses I was experiencing were connected to my unhealthy thoughts. And I'll give you an example here. I was raped and things like that. So I was angry. I didn't know any other way around it. I had closed myself off to love, sex, etc., and just thought, oh, well, everyone's a rapist type thing. Maybe not that extreme, but for purposes of this conversation, well, where did my cancer manifest? In my female parts. So I started to see how anger and escapism and things were actually triggering these things in my body. That was a long process as well, because the first time I heard that we really are responsible for our health, I think I wanted to punch the person that told me that, because I was in such a state of denial. I'm like, no, but you don't understand what they did, right?
Right.
I was so holding on to that. But, looking back on these things, you can really see. So when you begin to see these little so-called miracle healings or these different successes in different areas, it's just common sense to me at this time. And I have to tell you, that place of becoming fully responsible for my health, my body, my thoughts, my mind, my heart, has been one of the most empowering transformations I could ever imagine. So I went from, how dare you say that, I can do something about it. I'm powerless. Don't you know? Now I can see. So
that's
again,
amazing. My guest today is Christie Aphrodite. She's the host of Soul Journeys Radio on AmericanFreedomRadio.com and a holistic health coach. She's the creator of My True Essence and maker of organic skincare and healing products, as well as the creator of Project Love Your Neighbor, Liberating Souls, and a volunteer at SWMO Free School. Christie, so you had this amazing transformation in yourself, and then tell me how you ended up becoming a holistic health coach, because of course it seems like a natural progression, but tell me how you got to where you are today in terms of the work that you do.
Okay. Well, I mentioned before I had majored in nutrition, and I actually had aspirations to be in mainstream medicine as a child, and then life hit, and you're like, oh, well, this isn't working, and, for whatever reason, I'm unable or unwilling to do whatever it takes to do that. So what happened is, when I started to heal and see results, when I was walking again, I was just so passionate about it, and, just feeling for people that believed, just as I did, that they have to be in pain, or that, they have to remain dependent on drugs or whatever to live. So I just started sharing it. I'm like, well, did you know that you could heal yourself with this, that, or whatever? And so I just started working on people. For example, one gentleman that everyone he was kind of ostracized by society, and he was a vet and had gangrene on both of his legs. He was scheduled to have both of his legs chopped off, and so I just got a little nudge where, like a whisper in my ear, Christie, you can help him. Well, I don't really know if I can, but I'll try. And then a woman with pancreatic cancer, 4 months later, she was healed. So it definitely was a natural progression, but not something that I had planned on doing. I had no idea 5 years, especially 10 years ago, that I would be here doing this today, or making skincare, or making healing oils that would help people with cancer, gangrene, etc. That part started to come, though, after I started to heal. This was another thing that I had found out. Mind, body, spirit, we talk about that all being related, but until you really see it in action, it goes both ways. A lot of people focus on health either physically or mentally or spiritually. But I just saw real, true magic working, because when you cleaned out those certain parts of your body or the unhealthy thoughts, the other stuff just came naturally. The spiritual, the intuitive side, the creative side, and these oils and recipes just, I don't even know where they came from, Michele. I'm just being honest with you. People ask me all the time, where'd you get these recipes? What books did you read? How did you learn to do this? I'm like, I don't know. I just listened. It was just something in my heart, and so it came naturally. So I just started sharing it with people, neighbors, people walking down the street, just complete strangers, just to see, wow, is this going to work for everyone or just me? And that's how I started. Of course, it's, again, always a learning process. I try to learn something new every single day, and I definitely use myself as an example, or a pincushion, whatever you want to call it. But that's how it happened. I had no idea I would be here today, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I never would have dreamed any of this was possible, honestly. So I had to kind of get my negative thoughts out of the way to see the possibilities that could be before me.
And it sounds to me also, Christie, like you live very much in the moment.
Yes.
And living in the moment really helps you figure out where to go and what to do, because you're staying so present with your experience. So, Christie, as we get to the end of our time together today, I would love for you really to think back in your history and identify one moment that you really just decided things have got to turn around. I've got to make a change. I know in my own story, there was three, 4 big moments where I realized, okay, I've got to change direction. I'm headed in the wrong direction. And I had to really sit myself down and figure out, where do I go from here? How do I change to go a different way? And I wonder if you could identify one of those moments in your life when you had to change direction, and how did you do it?
Wow. I'm like you. I could come up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 1,000. But really, it was in 2006 or 2007, huge transformation. Just, we don't have time to get into all of that, but realizing that I was not only responsible for myself, but my 2 beautiful daughters. And they were just, oh my God, they were just so sweet. It was almost like they knew what to do. Nobody had to teach them to take care of mom or to change her clothes or to even cook for her. Here they are, 8, 9, 10 years old. And it was just looking in their eyes and their joyfulness and their grace. They'd go outside and pick me weeds and flowers and, here, Mommy, hope you feel better. So it was really that, just the warmth. And, my children believed in me. So I had to do something different. I didn't know what the something was, but I just knew I had to look. So I think it was kind of the act of being open for the universal flow to provide those answers and solutions for me. And I just trusted. I mean, I had no idea how it was going to happen, but I had learned to trust. I had learned faith in, the magic of the universe, the divine, I suppose, just, seeing things working out and looking back in retrospect. So I just knew. I didn't know how, didn't know why, didn't know where, didn't know anything, but I just knew. And then I was able to sit back and watch it unfold with the help of my beautiful babies. They were just amazing, the strongest, most beautiful, sweetest little angels in the world. And I'm sure, people are like, oh, well, my children are too. And I'm sure they are, but that's what it was for me.
Christie, what a great story. My guest today, Christie Aphrodite. You can find out more about her at souljourneysradio.com and also mytrueessence.net. Christie, thank you so much for sharing your terrifically inspirational story, but also your fantastic energy with me here today.
Thank you so much. Such an honor. I love you, Michele.
And I love you right back. Have a great rest of the day, Christie.
You too. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you. Take care.
Good night.
All right. So there you have it. A story of triumph. Out of a wheelchair into a new life. And of course, as Christie really expressed and explained over and over and emphasized throughout our whole conversation, it took time. Things don't happen overnight. And we were talking about this in one of the support groups that I run this morning, the idea that things have to take time and you still have to take the actions, even though they're not perfect right away. You take the action, you make the effort, and then you see what comes from it over time, so that you're not looking at any one moment as successful or failure, and I hate that word, I like successful or challenging, learning experience, but you're looking back over time, and Christie mentioned that as well, being able to look back and seeing the whole, like a whole part of the journey and what you've accomplished and what you have done, and how all those tiny little seemingly insignificant actions that you took actually led to and created a big change in direction that you'd been hoping for, even though you didn't know exactly how you were going to do it. So that what I love about conversations like this is how they emphasize the idea that change is always possible, even when we don't believe in it. Of course, it happens more quickly and more effectively when we do. But as Christie shared from the beginning, she didn't immediately believe it was possible to change, but she just decided to, in her words, lie to herself to get herself going. I like to call it acting as if we believe. So we're open to the idea that change is possible. All right, so I want to move into our new weekly feature, which is I will answer any question that you post to our Twitter stream at Change You Choose, or on the Michele Rosenthal fan page on Facebook, our brand new fan page, pulling together the whole community. So please, as you have done all along, help me build it. I think that, we've built some great communities, PTSD and trauma separately, and I think I would really love your help building one whole community together, because we are essentially all coming at things from the same perspective. So actually, we asked a question this week, and I wanted to share some of the answers with you. Vulnerability, do you or don't you accept it? And on Twitter, W. Montague wrote, after being a medic and seeing both preventable and unpreventable things, it's hard not to see potential for public dangers in my world. And I think that's definitely true. I was thinking about, the Boston Marathon and vulnerability for all of us. I was in New York City. I used to live in New York City, so I was living there at the time of 9/11, and we were also faced with our vulnerability in that moment. And I think there's two ways you can go. You can totally accept that you're vulnerable and work and learn to live within that world, or you can not accept it, and I think that leads to, I don't know. I think if you don't accept something that's true and just keep resisting it, then it's hard to move to a place that feels comfortable. So thank you, W. Montague, for your answer to that question. We also asked, do you think that you can heal through better nutrition without medications? And Marion, STE, offered yes. Better nutrition can heal. And then Kathy Dye, 69674036, offered healthy food is good for our body and an illness. So I think you're right. Creating the opportunity to heal through better nutrition is great. And then, as someone also pointed out, sometimes therapy and medications are necessarily the way to go. So it's always good to sort of try on an idea and then figure out what's right for you. So, all right, so getting to the question of the week, we posted on the Heal My PTSD Facebook fan page this quote, reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears. And that sparked a lot of conversation. Gillian Hanaway Rowe wrote, mixed feelings about this quote. If we reject a well-founded sense of injury, we can tempt others into more injurious behavior and neglect our mending. Michelle wrote, and this is the question that I want to address. Michelle Moore wrote, "What does that mean? I live with it." And so I wanted to sort of address this quote for a moment because I think it points up something that comes into our lives, and then we need to move through it. So the quote again is, "Reject your sense of injury and the injury itself disappears." And that's by Marcus Aurelius. I think, to answer your question, Michelle, I think what this quote is really saying is that when we see ourselves a certain way, it changes our experience. So if we were to reject our sense of being injured, then the injury can move further back into our history. Because as trauma survivors, okay, it's true, we've all been injured. So we're not rejecting the idea of the truth of our injury. I think the real idea behind this quote is to reject, and he says this, reject your sense of injury. So you're acknowledging the injury itself, but rejecting the sense of it. And I'm interpreting that as rejecting our victimization, our victimhood for the rest of our lives. Yes, we were victims at some point to someone or something. But in our lives today, in this moment, we are safe. In this moment, and I really do mean literally this moment, we are okay. And so it's important to define this particular moment without that sense of injury, because how are we going to move forward to heal, to overcome, to create the change we choose and the lives we want if we are always doing it from a sense of being injured? So to answer your question, Michelle, and thank you for responding on our Heal My PTSD Facebook fan page, yes, you live with the injury, but you don't have to live with the sense of it. So if any of you have more ideas about that, hop on to the Heal My PTSD Facebook fan page and leave your comments under this quote, which is in purple. It's an infographic. And while we live with the idea and the knowledge and the reality of our injuries, I'm still today, even more than 30 years later, dealing with medical conditions that my injury, my trauma caused. So I am literally, quote unquote, living with the injury, and yet not living with the sense of the injury, because I've decided I wanted to redefine who I was, and I wanted that definition to move beyond the scope of being just a trauma survivor into something bigger and more powerful and more meaningful. And so that, I think, is something each and every one of us has an opportunity to do, and it is entirely your choice. So as we wrap up today's show, our final little piece here, the change quote of the week, is from Scott Adams. I don't know, do you know? Scott Adams is the creator of Dilbert. And this is what he says he learned. Most success springs from an obstacle or failure. I became a cartoonist largely because I failed in my goal of becoming a successful executive. Now, if you're not familiar with the Dilbert cartoons, it's huge success, phenomenal success, syndicated everywhere. And what I love about Scott Adams' quote here is that most success springs from an obstacle or failure. I mean, right there, he's letting us all know, look in the obstacle, look in the failure for what can move you forward. Because he says he then became a cartoonist because he failed at becoming an executive. And what I think is so interesting about his perspective is that he took the dream he had, this executive, and let it go and took something new and built it into an enormous success. So you can do that too. You can create the change you choose by coming through an obstacle or a failure and then figuring out, what am I really good at because of this, and moving forward and taking your passion and taking your meaning and your purpose and turning it into something else solely because you discovered you couldn't go in the other direction you were trying to. All right, so there you go. My challenge for you this week is to look at some present or past obstacle or failure and figure out how to take your best self from that moment and take an action based upon it. Next show on Monday, we're doing 2 shows a week now. Next Monday, 2 o'clock, we have, today is Monday. Next Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, 2 days from now, we have the Direction Diva. She is Judy Davis, and she will be dishing about being a military spouse. And in addition to talking about being a military spouse, she's also going to share with us what's really important about a direction moment. That's Wednesday at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and 11 a.m. Pacific. I will see you here. And until then, remember, you have enormous healing potential. The goal is learning to access it. Dig deep. You can do this. I believe in you.
It's time to get real and heal. MyTrueEssence.net would like to tell you about Modifilan brown seaweed extract. It's composed of an elementally rich seaweed called laminaria. It takes 40 pounds of laminaria to make just 1 pound of Modifilan. There's nothing else like Modifilan. It is the richest in alginate, fucoidin, organic iodine, and lamarian. Alginates are the most effective organic element in nature that enable the body to rid itself of heavy metals, radioactive elements, and toxins. Fucoidin is an extremely effective anti-cancer substance found abundantly in brown seaweed. Organic iodine is the greatest protection for the thyroid offered by nature. Laminarin aids in the prevention and treatment of cardiovascular disease. Go to www.mytrueessence.net and click the Modifilan banner to get started on your path to rich health today. Also check out the Healing Shop for proven essential oils, medicinal teas, and even health coaching. It's time to get real and heal. Go to www.mytrueessence.net.
Get real and heal. Listen to Christie on Soul Journeys Radio.